Now to France, where police have made hundreds of arrests on a day of nationwide protests. Now, these are live pictures from one of the demonstrations taking place in Paris. Protesters are angry. Well, clearly those aren't protesters. Protesters are angry about steep spending cuts proposed by President Emmanuel Macron. There we go. These protests come just 2 days after his government lost a confidence vote. The president's appointment of his political ally, Sébastien Lecornu, as Prime Minister, has also fuelled anger across the country.
From the moment dawn broke, protesters across France set fires and blocked traffic in a bid to cause maximum disruption to people's daily lives. Peaceful demonstrations did go ahead in many places, like here in Bordeaux, but in other cities across France, hundreds of people had already been arrested by lunchtime. Clashes between protesters and the 80,000 police that were deployed across France erupted across the day. The so-called Block Everything Coalition is a collection of left-wing groups. They all oppose Macron and his revolving door of prime ministers, but have a disparate array of demands.
We are very, very tired of how Macron has been handling the situation.
We are unhappy with the current system. We want wealth to be shared among everyone. We are fed up with the richest people profiting. We want Mr. Macron to resign.
On veut la démission de Monsieur Macron.
The social crisis, the housing crisis, like Raphael mentioned, the housing crisis in Paris, that's really important, but also in the whole of France. There's the ecological crisis, there's like a lot of problem with neoliberalism.
In stark contradiction to the chaos on the streets, in central Paris, the handover to the country's new prime minister, the fifth in 2 years, was taking place. The protests were planned before any government change was on the agenda. But protesters say the coincidental timing clearly demonstrates the problems with France and how it is currently being governed.
Straight to Paris then, we can join our correspondent Lisa Louis. Welcome, Lisa. So the country wasn't brought to a standstill as protesters wanted, but there have been some significant disruptions.
Absolutely, there have been hundreds of hotspots around the country. The day started with protesters trying to block certain areas, certain parts, like the périphérique, boulevard périphérique, that goes the highway that goes around Paris. They didn't manage to block that for long. They were evacuated quite quickly by riot police. Later on, we then had a number of demonstrations. The government says that around 200,000 people were taking part in these demonstrations that went on, that are still going on in certain areas of France with, as you have shown, protesters putting a restaurant on fire here in Paris, but also altercations going on between riot police and demonstrators across the country. 500 people, more or less, have been arrested by the police.
And what have protesters been telling you across the day?
I went to one of the demonstrations at Gare du Nord here in Paris, and there were hundreds of people gathered there, mostly young people. All of them shared that view that they were really, really disappointed with what's going on right now here in Paris and in France. French politics, they were saying they felt that politicians weren't really listening to the people anymore. Some people were asking for a left-wing Prime Minister. As you mentioned earlier, Emmanuel Macron appointed Sébastien Lecornu, a close ally of his, and lots of people are not very happy about that. Others were saying, we are against the current system, but we don't really know what else we would like. We would just like more direct participation, direct democracy, as they are calling it. So what really united them all is unhappiness with what's going on, not just the recent chaos, not just the current chaos, but also what they've seen over the past few years, which they feel doesn't really represent what they want anymore.
And who's behind these protests?
Well, there was a group that set up a call to go and block the country on the 10th of September months back. and that group is known to be close to far-right extremists. But then after François Bayrou, the now ex-Prime Minister, announced the rough lines of his budget for the next year, the call for blocking the country on the 10th of September really gained ground. Lots of other groups were set up to say we really need to do something about this. And according to one poll from a Paris-based think tank, three-quarters, about 70% of the people who are in these groups, participating in organising today's protests are close to the far-left party, La France Insoumise. So, lots of people coming together, all unhappy about what's going on in the country. It started as a protest against the budget, but obviously it's also, against what's happening more generally speaking in French politics right now.
So a quick word then about the tasks facing the new Prime Minister. This is not a job that anybody really relishes.
Well, it's a mammoth task. As you know, the French Parliament is basically split into three blocks, none of which has a majority. Mr. Lecornu is now supposed to bring together some kind of, minority that might keep him in place. He has to bring together people from the centre-left and people from the centre-right, parliamentarians, and that would be really difficult because what they want is clearly opposed to each other.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Lisa Louis in Paris.